Hey everybody, you are listening to Grace Bond Ministries. Grace Bond Ministries is about sharing the Word of God, having conversations about difficult topics, talking about apologetics, coming together, tackling issues, answering questions, studying the Scripture, doing devotionals. Listen, Grace Bond Ministries has so many different things that we're going to talk about, that we have talked about, we're going to continue talking about, and this podcast is made for someone who wants to know more about the Christian faith, or wants answers to their questions, or just wants to ask questions, or just wants a safe place to talk about things, even things like politics, abortion, homosexuality, hell, or just how do I have strong faith? That's what you're going to get when you listen to Grace Bond Ministries. So thank you so much for tuning in, and I hope you are blessed and encouraged by what we do here.
Hey everybody, welcome to Grace Bond Ministries. We are back. Sorry for the delay. Summer has been crazy. Ministry has been great, but we're super excited to get into this topic. We're going to be discussing from a firsthand experience person about the Southern Baptist Convention. We're going to discuss with Jonathan. He went there, so I'm going to ask him some questions and just get some knowledge about what exactly happened, what everybody's talking about, what are the big takeaways from this conference. So we're super excited for that. And so just catch us and tune in, and we'll be right back.
For it is by grace you are saved through faith, not of yourselves, but it is a gift of God. Ephesians 2:8. Welcome to Grace Bond Ministries.
Hey everybody, welcome back to Grace Bond Ministries. I'm here with Jonathan Jenkins, and we're super excited to get into what all happened at the Southern Baptist Convention. But before that, just kind of catching up, how's life been, Jonathan? How's everything been going throughout this summer?
I'm trying to think. I guess the last episode we did would have been May. Pretty sure May. So, yeah, it would have been because we were going to do this one when I got back. But yeah, it's been pretty crazy. Summer's always kind of wild. But the funny thing is when I started the summer, it really wasn't going to be that heavy, and then that turned around pretty quick.
Yeah.
But it's been great. I mean, gosh, I went to the convention. I came back, done a bunch of stuff just in my community with my church, and done some really neat and fun stuff with my church and kids events and things. And we just finished up VBS about a week and a half ago now, or 2 weeks, and had 10 kids profess their faith, and we feel confident about. It sounds like about 9 of them, maybe 8 of them. And so that's exciting. I'm baptizing, I believe I'm up to 10 now here in a couple weeks. So that's exciting. And got to go on vacation. We drove all the way to Indiana and back, and stayed in Blue Ridge for a week as well, and got to see some family and experience Blue Ridge, Georgia. And it's been busy, but it's all been good stuff. And I did learn how important it is in ministry to take a vacation, because I come back from vacation guns a-blazing. As soon as I came back, we had VBS, so I didn't really have a choice. But I was just on fire and rejuvenated and ready to go. And so it was a good reminder to me to make sure to rest and protect that rest and protect from burnout and all that stuff. So yeah, it's been good. It's been busy, but it's been some good stuff. And I got my boys growing up, and he's getting bigger and bigger, and he's about 10 months old now, and about to be 1 here in a couple months. And then Emerald, my daughter, is going to be about 5, and she's not about 5, she will be 5 in September. So yeah, it's going to be a fun year, and just a lot of cool stuff happening. But what about you, Christian? How's things going?
Man, it's been the same here. I've gotten myself involved in so many different camps. It feels like I have a trouble saying no, and I was like, 3 ministry type of camps during a week just isn't enough for this summer, so I've got to add one more. And so we had a week of VBS, followed by a week of youth camp. Then I got to go And youth camp was great. We go up to Journey Camp, and we had 3 salvations, and then I had 5 students that talked about a calling into ministry, which is awesome. So now to kind of just pray that all the discipleship and trying to get them to understand what that exactly means um, will be an awesome thing to go through this coming fall. And then we got to go on vacation at Disney as my sister graduated college. This was kind of all of our family vacation, her graduation trip. And so we got to ride all the rides. Interesting time in Epcot as lightning struck Disney while we were on Soarin'. And so that's another story for a different day, but we were suspended in the air for 40 minutes. So that was fun. Then we come back, and I had 1 week overnight kids camp with our association, and we had 2 or 3 salvations there. And then we had a week long 8:30 to 4 p.m. camp at the church Monday through Friday. And so I was able to be there for most of that week. I was the campus pastor, and then my kidneys decided to drop a stone. And so that was fun. But now we're back and ready for the routine of school and just how youth and everything else rolls throughout the school year. We just had an event on Wednesday with a bunch of youth groups, and it was awesome to be able to do that. So now we're back all together. But I guess diving into the convention, I hope everybody else had a great summer. If you want to, just email us, drop us what great happened throughout your summer. Maybe your church had a VBS and you were a part of it. We'd love to reach out to you and hear what happened there. But just to remind us, when was this SBC convention, if you can remember back then too? Feels like so long ago.
It was like the beginning of June, somewhere around like the 6th through the 10th, something like that, which is kind of weird. When we talk about the convention, so they do 2 things at each convention. They call it the Pastors Conference, which starts on Sunday night or Sunday afternoon, really, I guess. But anyways, Pastors Conference is, it's its own separate thing, but it's basically just preaching and worship and that kind of stuff. I know they did a few trainings and whatnot. As the pastor of First Baptist Lakeland was president this past year, so he kind of did the same things that he did at our state convention with the whole convention. So, but yeah, so there was the pastors conference on Sunday night and Monday, and then the actual SBC that started Tuesday morning. So, but yeah, it was good. So it's basically Sunday night through Wednesday afternoon, really. But yeah, it's always early June.
So for those who haven't been to one, those who probably won't be able to go to one before, what exactly happens at a Southern Baptist convention? Kind of what makes us different than most denominations in a way? Something like this.
Yeah, it's funny right now, which I think it may have been last week, the Church of God, their assembly, I don't know what they call it. I'm pretty sure it's called the Assembly or something like that. But anyways, I'm pretty sure they met in the same exact building we were in last week at the convention center. But yeah, one of the things, if you're Southern Baptist, you may or may not know this, but Southern Baptists are very unique in our denomination just because of our governance, how each church kind of governs itself. And so the Southern Baptist Convention is really just an association of churches, maybe more like a partnership or something like that. Now we do have a statement of faith, the Baptist Faith and Message 2000. And so if you're going to be in friendly cooperation with the Southern Baptist Convention, you'll have to agree with that Baptist Faith and Message. If not, we don't really vote people out. We just vote that, hey, as a convention, we are saying that we no longer affiliate with this church or that church or whatever. But and so anyway, so when you go, like I said, you got the pastors conference, which is preaching, usually some of the more popular pastors, which this year I think it was mostly some of our Florida guys, which we've got some really great and popular pastors throughout Florida. And Willie Rice, he's a pastor in St. Petersburg. He's the new president of the Southern Baptist Convention. He preached during that. And then also, too, while you're there, they have like there's like an entire exhibit hall that's just full of booths that has all kinds of ministry related things in it. And so you get to walk around and maybe even find some tools or resources, you know, that you didn't know about. Like I know for our church, one of the bigger ones is us trying to figure out our next step in our church worship. So we got to talk to some people about that, and then too, it's like, you know, these popular guys of the Southern Baptist Convention, you know, across the board are there, you know, so you're just walking around and Dr. Moeller just kind of walks by you, you know, and or Dr. Herschel York.
I'm sure.
Yeah, he was there, and then all the schools are represented, you know, inviting you to schools and stuff like that. Our school was there, Root and Parker, and well, I guess Tennessee Baptist Theological Seminary as well. So, so you get all that, and so you got your exhibit hall, and then you've kind of got the event going on, and then Tuesday when the convention starts, it's kind of mixed in. The entire convention, the first thing they do is they agree to basically the order of things, of how things are scheduled out, stuff like that. And so usually the first day you get all these kind of new motions and very brief discussion about it. They get sent to a resolutions committee or the committee on order of business, and then they decide, you know, hey, is this something that's in order that we need to vote on, or is it something to, you know, send to our executive committee, let them discuss it and try to decide something on it. And then also too, we have our president of the Southern Baptist Convention always runs the meetings and also gives a president's address. So there's preaching, and then worship always opens up every single session that we have. And I know Shane and Shane were there. I heard they recorded a podcast in the exhibit hall, I believe. So I haven't seen that, but and I wasn't in there for it, but. So anyways, you kind of do that. They go through business. You know, we do have a budget for the Southern Baptist Convention that we all vote on. And then our resolution is kind of like a public statement of it's like making a public statement about something, whatever it may be. And then you also have motions to, you know, change things, add things, research things, whatever it may be, and that we all vote on and do. And and then you vote, you know, you elect all your leaders for throughout the next year. And then other than that, I mean, that's kind of how it rolls. You just kind of vote on the stuff or whatever. And again, it's a cooperation thing more than anything. And so, you know, the reason we vote is because we want to say, hey, this is what we as Southern Baptists want to say. This is what we as Southern Baptists want to do. This is what we as Southern Baptists want to spend our money on, or whatever it may be. And it's the same at our churches too, hopefully, that, you know, we're Congregationalist for the most part. And so anyways, yeah, that's kind of the gist of what happens at it. State conventions are run pretty much the same. They're just smaller.
That's cool. And it was held right in Orlando, right next to you. And so they rotated around, I think, every year. Do they have a certain number of cities they rotate between, or they just kind of pick and choose each year?
The executive committee they're the ones that recommend where we go and or where the convention is held. And what they do is they usually try to rotate it across the nation. I think next year it's in Arizona, maybe something like that. I can't remember where it's at next year, but yeah, it's somewhere not close. I know that. But yeah, they rotated around. That was kind of weird. They haven't done Orlando in a long time. So, but yeah, they have it listed out usually for the next like 5-10 years of where each convention is going to be. So, but that is voted on. That's voted on during the convention as well. And this year, it kind of became a big point of discussion about whether or not to meet in California. But it's kind of a waste of time.
Are they scared of California now, I guess?
No, their thought is the couple of people that were like, hey, why are we meeting in California? They're like, hey, well, listen, we just made this statement about bivocational pastors and all this stuff, but there's no way we can get to California. from all the way over here, and that Orlando is one of our bigger, most attended ones, and all that. But then, of course, the very next person that got up and spoke, he said, "Well, listen, I'm a bivocational pastor in California, and I appreciate it when the convention's in California." So it was just kind of a waste of time, but and it's funny because we probably discussed that more than we discussed the amendment. So it's kind of funny.
That's crazy.
And it
That's
got
pretty
shot
funny.
down.
They don't want to put it in California. They'd just move it like a couple states over, or state over to Arizona. Like, we'll move it a little closer to y'all. It'll make it a little bit better.
Yeah. Actually, I remember now. It's in Indiana next year, Indianapolis.
Is it again? Didn't they do that like 2 years ago?
Yeah, it was pretty recent.
Yeah.
Because I remember, because I just went up to Indiana to see my aunt, and I was like, dang, if I had just went next summer, it had just made this whole thing a trip. But
Yeah, for sure. I mean, when you're a pastor and you got to go ahead and do that, you might as well make a whole trip out of it. It's a good thing.
Yeah.
They usually put it in some cities. You got some more stuff to do. I'm sure everybody comes to Orlando. They're like, well, I'll just go to the convention and then go to Disney, go to Universal, make it a whole family trip out of it.
To my knowledge, there was a lot of extra kids and stuff came with family and all that. And I think they maxed out the children's. They had a children's thing going on pretty much all day, each day. And I think they were pretty much maxed out.
So the kids didn't have to sit in the service.
Not usually, no. No.
Probably a good thing. So with all the resolutions made and all that, is there any that stuck out to you besides the big one that we'll talk about here pretty soon? Is there any that stuck out to you? Did you get to make one yourself?
No, I didn't get to make one myself. They were pretty interesting. I know the ones that actually passed. Bart Barber, the previous president, he sent one in kind of as a joke. I forgot what it was about like decaf coffee or something like that. I can't remember. But that one, so that gets sent to the Committee on Resolutions, and they decide, hey, this is one that we need to bring up at the meeting or not. People can question that, but typically, if the Committee on Resolution says we don't need to bring that up, we usually don't. But I mean, that can be challenged, of course. But the ones I remember specifically off the top of my head is I remember the bivocational one that Mark Clifton sent in, which is just basically saying, listen, we as Southern Baptists, we really appreciate our bivocational ministers that are out there, and we appreciate everything that they do. And we want to help you in any way we can. And Mark Clifton got up there, probably one of the best speeches of the entire convention, just talking about it and how great they are and stuff like that. So, but that passed with flying colors. I know the disabilities, that's a big one within our Southern Baptist Convention. I mean, we've got a lot of I think that's becoming a bigger thing that churches need to learn how to handle. And so that was a big resolution, just saying, supporting that. It was kind of a resolution, and then there was also something that was a motion, so I can't remember exactly what happened there. But
they putting forward training resources and stuff like that.
Yeah, I know that was part of it. I mean, they tabled a lot of the what do they call them? Task forces. They tabled all the task forces indefinitely. So I'm not really sure what that's going to turn into. But
task forces sounds like we're military or something trying to go out.
Yeah, for real.
It's not committees like you hear in most Baptist churches. They've got task forces. Maybe that would get some stuff done at church if we just call them task forces.
Task force.
Like, this is your mission.
Force.
Yeah. That's the new building project team, Space Force.
There was one big resolution against political violence, and kind of mainly in response to the Charlie Kirk assassination. But that one was very interesting to me. Like, and it basically said we don't support political violence on any front. And then somebody that had mentioned it came up there and said, hey, listen, I think we need to specifically name Charlie Kirk in this resolution. And but then the chairman of the committee on resolution said that this was what was really cool to me. He said, I actually became really good friends with Charlie, and I just, I think with resolutions we try to be as broad as possible, just because we want to cover it all. And he said, I even think that Charlie would probably rather his name not be mentioned in it, than to be mentioned. So now I mean, I don't know. I just voted to keep it as it is because I knew the committee on resolution sat around and discussed this stuff already, so it's not like it's never been discussed. I mean, it's sent in, the committee on resolutions looks over it. They kind of straighten up the words a little bit, and then it's presented to the convention. So by the time it actually comes to us, it's probably as good as it's going to get, in my opinion. But we did correct a couple of the resolutions, different statements or whatever. So a couple of those things were added or changed. But yeah, that was pretty much it. I mean, I know we did. There was a resolution on pastorship, but that one was pretty straightforward. It wasn't as big of a deal as the amendment. I mean, a resolution's never as big of a deal as an amendment, but it definitely wasn't. It passed with flying colors, so it wasn't that big of a deal. But yeah, that's the ones I can remember off the top of my head.
Yeah, that's pretty good. That's cool how they you touched on a lot of array of topics and kind of what's all the aspects of what's going on in the world right now. And they were able to find some, not really solutions, but be able to let them know that they're there, offer resources.
Yeah, right.
It's bivocational. It just means that a pastor in a church and working another job, if you don't know what that means, and it can be tough. And so our convention likes to add resources. Oh, is he finding some notes?
So when you go, they give you a book of reports.
Fancy.
That actually lists them off.
Yeah. Did the decaf coffee make it past the resolution board?
Did not.
Darn. I was about to say, did they just pass that so they could be brought up as a joke to lighten the mood? When it got heavy, they just threw that one in there.
Yeah.
To lighten everybody up. No, but it's pretty cool to know what's going on, and to know we got some level-headed leaders. It's kind of like in churches where if it's brought before the resolution board, you got to kind of trust that they know what they're doing. And you can be that guy that votes against everything, but then you would just be annoying.
Pretty much.
If they look at you for a no every single time, there might be a problem. And y'all got little like white things that you hold up, kind of like an auction, right? To put your vote in.
Yeah, they give you ballots. I mean, you hold them up. If they're not going to take up a numbered ballot count, if they're not going to do a ballot count, then you just hold them up. But if they do a ballot count, then you fill them out. And
that'd be wild trying to collect all those ballots.
Yeah, they sit there and count them.
I wonder who's in charge of counting.
I cannot find it.
You could get really funny in voting and jokes, but we won't do that here. Yeah, I think I went to one Georgia Baptist convention. And I'll be honest, I was bored out of my mind during the business part. But I'm a youth pastor. I didn't really get any.
Yeah.
I didn't get any ballots, I don't think. None of the issues struck me. And I felt like the guys were just jumping in circles on some of their statements. I'm like, y'all are saying the same thing, guys.
Yeah.
But it's like any good family. Get in arguments even though you're saying the same exact thing. It's all in fun. Fun of the game, fun of business,
And I kind of wonder a lot with the convention if sometimes people just want to get up there so they can be seen. more so than actually help.
I mean, even when they offer youth a time on the mic, like they're excited. They're gonna make their moment.
Yeah, my time to shine.
For a lot of those guys, that's the time everybody in the Southern Baptist Convention might actually see them, because their live stream ain't gonna hit. It's pretty cool.
They gave us a daily thing that I think maybe that's where the resolutions were written.
Okay.
But yeah, it was.
Before we get into the big one, what's the difference between a resolution and an amendment? I feel like Nemo. Difference between a resolution and an amendment.
Yeah, so like I said, a resolution is all it is a public statement. It's not we're not really changing anything. We're not changing doctrine or nothing like that. But it's just a public statement against or for something or whatever it may be. And then also so there's motions. You can make a motion to do stuff, which kind of most of the time it just gets sent to the executive committee. They sort through it and they figure out how they can make the motion happen or not happen. You know, like one guy, he got up there and made a motion about basically trying to get control of the worship and making sure that, you know, we're not singing songs from groups that disagree with our denominations theology, but that got shot down. Actually got shot down as out of order because it's the responsibility of the worship director that we vote on for the convention. But you know, so you can make motions like that actually change, you know, how we function or change something. You know, like somebody could make a motion to change like one of the locations that we meet, but you know, we there were a bunch of motions that got brought up, and either were because they also have on that committee they have a group, and they also have oh shoot, I forget what they're called, but basically they have guys that they know the bylaws and stuff very well, and so they kind of help determine whether something's in order or out of order, you know, and so a lot of them get called out of order, you know, some of the things that they're trying to demand, and then some of them they get sent to the executive committee, and they kind of decide, and then some of them get brought back to the floor, and we have to vote on it whether or not to let the motion pass or not. So yeah, that's kind of what a motion is. An amendment is an amendment to our Constitution and bylaws, which that requires a 2/3 vote for 2 consecutive years in a row. And normally somebody would bring up the amendment, it would get sent to the executive committee, and then the next year they would vote on it the first time, and then if it passed, they'd vote on it on the next year after that. So technically, it's really more of a 3-year process, but yeah, that's to change our Baptist faith and message pretty much in our bylaws. So if we change anything in that, it has to be approved by a 2/3 vote, and that's where amendments come in. So for the most part, I mean, we do motions and amendments in most churches, and even in businesses and stuff, they use Robert's Rules of Order a lot. So that's pretty typical. The resolutions is not as typical. I mean, we don't really do that as churches. I mean, I've never seen it, but we don't really do that typically as churches, but we do it as a convention usually. State conventions do it too.
It's cool. So it's a longer process than a motion and a vote on one day usually.
Yeah, so there's a time where you can introduce new motions, and then as long as you introduce it and get a second, then he'll tell them to, you know, bring it up to the table, write it down, bring it up to the table, and then the committee on order of business will take a look at it and decide if it's in order or not, and then decide whether or not to refer it to the executive committee or to bring it back to the floor to be voted on by the entire convention. So, and it seems like probably about 90% of the time, most motions are just sent to the executive committee that meets, because they meet throughout the year. They have more time to discuss things and all that. So,
Yeah, that makes sense. And they follow Robert Rules of Order, right?
Pretty much, yeah. Between that and the bylaws, yeah.
And so I guess the thing everybody's been waiting for, we're close to the half-hour mark. And so what was this big amendment that Al Mohler brought up that kind of shook the world for a second? What was it
About to
all
say,
about?
I feel like we're kind of late to the games now. Things have started dying down from that, but
It's ignited again. No, just kidding.
yeah, and I don't know all the details. You know, I don't know Al Mohler personally or nothing, so I haven't been able to talk to him personally. But the amendment itself was to say that, you know, as Southern Baptists, I mean, our Baptist faith and message already says that we believe the role of pastor is specifically meant for men, or something like that. I'd have to look at it, see how it's exactly worded. But the requested amendment was to say, to the role, it was going to add not just the role, but also the function of a pastor. And then specifically, Al Mohler added on there, speaking to the assembled congregation. You know, like a Sunday morning sense, I think was the idea behind it. And so it was not a whole lot of words, but it was an amendment just to say that. And so when he brought it up as a motion, and of course it got seconded, and then they decided, and because he also made a motion to basically overrule the rule that it would be sent to the executive committee and voted on at the next meeting, that it go ahead and be voted on at this meeting. And so that passed, and so we got to vote on it. And so he comes up, and what they do is they bring up whoever made the motion. They have to explain the motion to the convention. They get like 3 minutes, and then if there's any discussion, then people can come up to the mic and they can discuss. And so it was really crazy. I was sitting there when Al Mohler started talking, and kind of walking. I was sitting pretty close, and he's up there talking, explaining this motion, and there's like 15 people standing in front of him, taking pictures, like news people taking pictures and all this stuff, and like flashes going off in his face. And I'm just thinking, if I had to talk while all that stuff was going on, there is no way I could have talked like he did. But so anyways, what frustrated a lot of people, and where the debate lied was, you know, is our Constitution and bylaws, is our Baptist faith and message already clear enough? Which I think that's why the amendment has not passed in the past. It's been brought forward in different forms in the past, but it's never got the 2/3 vote. And that's one side of things. Then the other side, you know, then people were saying, you know, how many churches do we actually have that have women pastors? You know, and we're already disassociating from them and all that stuff. And so, you know, what's the point? What's the point of doing this amendment to amend our Baptist faith and message? Because it's a big deal to have an amendment on a Baptist faith and message. So, because, you know, typically, like I said, a lot of that stuff is just like a resolution. You just kind of make an additional statement rather than changing, you know, our organizing, our cooperative doctrinal statement, I guess. But so anyways, so when Al Mohler presented it, I was in line too, and a bunch of people. I mean, there was a bunch of people in line ready to discuss, and this one guy got up there and he said, you know, he's not for women pastors. He was just arguing that it was pointless to make this motion and to make this amendment because it's already clear enough, and that right now we have 0 churches with women pastors, and that if there ever is, that they were brought to the committee. The committee on I can't remember what that committee's called, but there's a specific committee that researches and looks into churches to see if they are sticking to the Baptist faith and message, or are they willing to change or adjust or whatever it may be. And so he said, you know, it's not really worth it. And then after he got done speaking, so what they try to do is they try to let somebody that is against the motion and somebody who is affirming the motion, they let both of them talk one at a time, pretty much. So this guy was against it, and then the next guy was for it. So the next guy starts talking, And this is what frustrated a lot of people, because he got this 2 or 3 minute explanation of why he thought it was a good motion. And then he made a motion to cancel, basically finish discussion and vote on the motion. And so everybody else in line that wanted a chance to say something didn't, because it passed. Everybody passed it with flying colors that we go ahead and vote on it. And so Al Mohler presented, the one guy against presented, the one guy for presented, and then that motion was made, and that was it. And then we voted on it. We did a ballot vote, and it came back like 78%, I think, to 22 or something like that. And so it passed the first go. So now it has to pass again at the next year convention to actually make the amendment stick. And so it's kind of weird, because I mean, I know some people that voted against it, and I also know that they believe in complementarianism. They believe that the role of pastor is specifically for men, and that as Scripture describes it. And and so they still voted against it because they felt like maybe the Baptist Faith and Message was already clear enough. They were worried, what could this do with churches? Because there's also kind of like hard complementarian, and then there's soft complementarian. And so some churches would believe that, a woman should not even teach a mixed Sunday school class, And then obviously we have a lot of Southern Baptist churches that allow that. And so they were worried, is that going to cause a problem there? Which in my conversations with people, it was more like, I support this amendment and I understand your concern, but even though I wouldn't allow that, that's not what this amendment addresses. And so I think in a lot of people's minds, when this amendment was brought forward, it was really in response to Rick Warren's church, because of what he did and how difficult it was to, remove our cooperation with him. And then also some churches where there was a church, I believe, in Texas, and they had assigned the role. They had named women as pastors of their church, not the lead pastors, but other pastors. And then they were contacted by the convention, and they just kind of changed the name pastor and gave them a different title, like minister or something like that. But were they still serving in the function of a pastor? So they get a little. I think even if it passes, I'm not sure how much it's actually going to change. But it's definitely brought forward some I think very helpful discussion about the role of pastor. What does it mean to be complementarian? What are the passages in First Timothy mean? And how does all that work? And how does it work compared from our church today to the church that was around in the first century? And so and all that. And so the thing that the reason it got so big is, for one, people think complementarianism itself, the belief that complementarian means that the two roles, that men and women's roles, complement one another. Not that they're against each other, not that one is greater than the other, but that they complement each other and they go together very well. And then the other view is egalitarianism. These are the two kind of extremes, I guess. Which egalitarians usually believe that women are allowed to do anything, even according to the Scripture. So, but the Southern Baptist Convention has historically always been complementarian, and it's such a lot of people. I even had somebody tell me locally that hey, that's just kind of old school, old school thought, old school theology, or whatever. And so that's the idea. It's like, a lot of people think, well, the church just hasn't caught up. But what we're saying is this is what we believe the Bible teaches, and this is what we want to stand behind as Southern Baptists. And if you do not want to stand behind that, if you don't want to stand behind this theology, then you shouldn't consider yourself a Southern Baptist, and we should not have fellowship together because you deny what we consider one of the critical doctrines of our denomination. So. And when you look at all the denominations, it is probably one of the most unique factors from the Southern Baptist Convention compared to all the other ones, is our stance on complementarianism and then baptism by immersion and stuff like that. But that's probably one of the biggest ones that separates us out from a lot of other denominations, a lot of other churches, stuff like that. So anyways, bottom line is it passed, and then it blew up across the internet, across the news, all over the place. And, there wasn't, within Southern Baptists is really the only place you saw the actual disagreement, which was on, whether the Baptist faith and message was already clear enough. And then also there was a lot of discussion about, can women teach, mixed classes? And then you also got the thing with youth ministry. Can a woman be a youth minister? Can somebody who's not a lead pastor still have the title or function of a pastor, even though, she's not preaching on a Sunday morning or whatever it may be, and then in what circumstances can a woman speak to a group of people or not? And so all these questions kind of have come up, and but a lot of it wasn't really addressed through this amendment, and it was really just people from all over the place taking their interpretations and potential interpretations and really arguing about that. So they're arguing about stuff that it doesn't even say. But at the end of the day, as far as the news goes and all that, they're upset just because of the idea of limiting women's roles, which obviously we don't believe we're doing that. We believe we're following the scriptural and biblical mandate. And so, and there's a lot of women within the Southern Baptist Convention who also believe that, so, and I do think one of the strengths that we've had recently is not that we've given up complementarianism, but we've also been sure to back up and really admire the role of women in ministry and in the church, which is very important. So, and I think that was a part of the resolution on pastors was women in ministry. So, but yeah, it was a very touchy subject and controversial as all could be, and all that. And so, but to me, I think it was helpful just a reminder that, hey, this is what we believe as Southern Baptists. And if you don't believe this if you don't believe this, you shouldn't be a Southern Baptist. I think it's kind of the end of it for me. You could still, we can't even force a church to change their name. All we could do is say, as a convention, we no longer fellowship with you. You no longer have a vote at our conventions, and stuff like that. But we that's it. We can't really do anything else. And so there was so much stuff that got said about that, and one of them was about sexual abuse within the convention. We had that big report came out and all that a couple of years ago, and Christian and I talked about that on the podcast before, and actually there was a resolution directed straight towards that. It's just that doesn't make as good of news, so a lot of people didn't post it to their news. So, but there was resolutions and continued support for abuse victims and continued support for training and different things like that. I had no idea how much training was out there within our convention, and especially in Florida. We've got a ton of stuff to train churches on sexual abuse prevention. And so, yeah, it was definitely intense, and and I wish I think if there would have been a little bit more discussion, and that guy wouldn't have just called for it to be voted on, I think we probably would have got an even higher amount of agreement and vote when we voted on it. But because 22% is still pretty significant. But like I said, most of the people I know that voted of that 22% weren't voting and saying that women could be pastors, just that the Baptist faith message is already clear enough. And if we vote on this, then it's going to limit women in ministry altogether, and it's going to allow the committee just to start kicking out churches left and right that are soft complementarian. So yeah, that's kind of the gist of it. And honestly, how I just described it was longer than what we actually had to talk about it at the convention. So, yeah.
That's crazy. How short, especially that everybody, you would think that 22% and some other people would want more discussion on it than that.
It's always... the motion to stop and go ahead and vote on it was not 2/3. It was just a majority. And so, was it actually 2/3? I couldn't really tell, but it was definitely a majority. You could tell when people raised their ballots. So it is what it is. Like I tell people all the time, we discuss, we vote, we move on. So
I mean, I guess at a certain point they were all like, it's Al Mohler putting forward an amendment. I trust that guy. Let's go ahead and vote on it.
Yeah.
At the same time.
Yeah, and I tell you, one of the biggest tensions I see. I mean, like I think I voted for the amendment, but I think Baptist Faith and Message is already clear enough. I don't think this is our biggest problem. I think our biggest problem is going to be Reformed theology versus non-Reformed theology or Calvinist theology. I don't like using the word Reformed because I'm Reformed, but I think that came up, I think, a lot, and not necessarily the theology itself, but just the influence of Calvinistic theology and Reformed theology. So I think that may be something that really could cause some problems in the future for our convention.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see, like, go back and study specifically what part of Reformed theology was actually part of the original Southern Baptist groups that were put together. Because you get into some of the weeds, you get into some of the thick of it. It's like, I think some of them agree more than they think they do. And then what's exactly our stance on that? And
yeah,
half the doctrines, I feel like, wouldn't be as specific. That would have to be a whole lot more specific than most of our statements are in the Baptist Faith and Message, if we got deep into the weeds of all that.
Yeah. And you think about, too, in our Reformed churches, especially the ones within the Southern Baptist Convention, they're elder-run churches. And so when is that going to start influencing how we run our convention? When are we going to have an elder-run convention?
Yeah.
So and I could kind of tell, and I guess it's just I'm just around so many people and pastors and listen to theologians so much, but I can usually tell within about 5 or 10 minutes if somebody's Reformed or not. So it's just based on how they talk and what the most important things are to them. Is kind of a telltale sign for me, but I also tell people I'm an anti-Calvinist. So,
nah.
But
a Calvinist.
Yeah. At the end of the day, it usually really is just semantics. Like I'm going to go share the gospel with somebody. If I had a Reformed guy with me, he's going to share the gospel probably in just about the same way. And at the end of the day, I'm going to say that person got saved because of my free will choice to share the gospel with them, their free will choice to accept the gospel. He's going to say they got saved because God ordained this time for me to talk to them. God gave me the exact words to say, and God already knew what I needed to say in order for them to actually put their faith in Jesus. So basically it goes from God controlled every single part of it, more like a puppet master, and versus God allowed free will choices to really freely affect, what we did. And so there's a fine line there, but at the end of the day, I think that's why there can still be cooperation, because we're still both mission focused, for the most part. I mean, I haven't met any like what do they call them, hyper Calvinist or whatever, that just like, no, we don't need to do anything because God's got this or whatever,
I know some.
Yeah. Most of them, most of what I've met are pastors or leaders, I guess I should say. But
True. Yeah. I feel like the Christianity oppressing women has kind of been something that's been discussed and probably will continue to be discussed for ages, because people have looked at scripture and said Jesus was oppressive towards them or brought them up. But I mean, you see them as people that follow Jesus around, that Jesus allowed them to come and to learn, but they weren't one of the 12 apostles, as you could say, or one of the major apostles. But they were there, they were learning, they were a part of the ministry a lot, as much. There's just something about putting them in a leadership or the head of a church is just a different story and a different aspect. So I think we're kind of along the same lines of where I know my mom grew up and she was the one that usually taught our youth ministry. And so dad was there, dad helped. But I know mom did a lot of the Bible lessons. And you look at most churches, it's not usually a guy who's over children's ministry. It's a girl, which, I mean, is usually They're the ones that's more caring. They're the ones that understand the kids sometimes more than we do. And so it just makes a lot of sense. And then the mixed Sunday school class, it's a hard one to discuss, but it's always a fun one to discuss too. You kind of get everybody's perspective. But you might have hinted on that, kind of where do you stand on that aspect? I know we're getting close to the end, but
yeah, I think there is a term. I mean, I've heard it in theology works and stuff, but theological works, but there's, like I said, there's soft complementarianism and then there's hard complementarianism. And I more towards lean towards this, even when you look at 1 Timothy chapter 2, and remember that in the Greek text, there are no chapters and verses. So this is Paul's whole thought. The letter is Paul's thought, one thought. And it seems to me that chapter 2 connects directly with chapter 3 about being silent in the church, women being silent in the church and all that stuff. And then in chapter 3, it talks about pastors. But I tell you, the most convincing line to me in 1 Timothy 3 is not the husband and one wife. I mean, I think that's an important distinction, but it's that he must run his household well. Because if he can't run his household well, how could he run a church well? And I think when you look through all the scripture and you see male leadership in that, and then also too, if you've been a leader, like you're in charge, or not necessarily even in charge, just being responsible, like as a pastor, I don't do everything at my church, it's impossible, but I'm responsible for everything that happens at my church. Like I tell them all the time, if we ever have a problem or anything like that, and we ever had to go to court or something like that, or somebody got accused of something, I said, they may ask y'all to come be a witness or whatever, but guess what? They're going to ask me to be there to represent the church. So, so at the end of the day, responsibility and leadership is such a heavy thing. And I think, especially within the church, this is just how God set it up. And again, you got to remember, it's not about, making men or women less or more or nothing like that. It's about, what naturally helps the church the best. And a lot of times with women, like in our church, most of our children's workers are women, not all, but that's just because women are just so much better with children than men are a lot of times, but it would be kind of weird for like a woman to come teach at a men's breakfast or something like that, just because of the dynamic shift. I mean, it's just, I think God is wise enough to know, what'll work best and what won't. But and I did want to mention this, this was my big thing too. It's like, that became such a point of contention. But the problem is for all of us, I think, even in our personal lives, it is so easy to focus on the negatives that we overlook the positives. And I think we sent out another, it was like 100-something missionaries across the world, and we celebrated all these new church plants. And yeah, the people have criticized that our membership has gone down, but our attendance has gone up. And I think a lot of that is because churches are finally, rightfully, cleaning up their roles. For the longest time, if you got on a church roll, you were on that roll until you took yourself off, pretty much. And so a lot of churches are cleaning up their roles and all that stuff. So the membership numbers have dwindled, but the attendance numbers and baptisms have actually gone up. And so to me, that doesn't look like a convention that is falling. That's a convention that is growing and continuing to grow and get stronger as we go, which is very significant, especially with the stances, the very conservative stances that we take as a convention. That's pretty significant that we're continuing to grow like this and not dwindling.
Yeah, for sure. And that tells us a little bit that it's going well. We're on the right track. We're pushing forward. So kind of to end the podcast, just tell us your takeaway and kind of close us out, if you would.
Yeah. I mean, it was fun. I haven't been to a national convention since the last time it was in Orlando, which I think was like 10 or 12 years ago or something. I can't remember. It had to be longer than that because I was a kid. So, but anyways, that was the last time I had ever been to a national convention, and it was in Orlando. And, so it was fun just to be there and kind of go around and And when I went last time, I was just a kid. Now I'm a pastor. And so like the conversations and stuff I had were so helpful, especially in the exhibit hall. I was trying to go around and get all my free stuff, but and in the exhibit hall, I don't know if I told you this, Christian, but they had like a scavenger hunt. And so if you completed the scavenger hunt, you got put in for a raffle. So we worked on that a lot on Monday. Didn't win anything though, but we did get it done on Monday. But so that was pretty cool. And then they got a Lifeway store there, which that was cool because you don't see too many stores anymore. And one of my favorite things is when you're in a group like that, like, yeah, we got people, we've got our opinions, whatever, we can discuss those things, but to see people come together, to see pastors like in one room and like worshiping, like it's so rare to be in a room where everybody's just pouring their hearts out to God. Like you usually get a couple grumpy pants, sitting in the corner, not singing or not doing nothing, but at conventions, it is just so neat to see so many people just worshiping God and all that. And I do agree. There was one person criticized about how, we get all these people showed up for these amendments and stuff like that. And as soon as worship starts, that's everybody's cue to get up and move around, walk around, all that stuff. And that kind of bothered me too. It's like, this is probably the most important thing we do here is to worship God for all that he's done and is doing and will do. So, but yeah, overall, I mean, that stuff was a little tense, and then social media and the online community made it even worse. But for the most part, that, like I said, that was a very small portion of everything that we talked about and did, and all of that. I mean, all of our schools are growing and doing better, and they're giving more opportunities for seminary training, and things are growing. The Lord is moving. People are getting saved and baptized through the Southern Baptist Convention Cooperation, the cooperative program, and people are being impacted across our nation, across our entire world because of the Southern Baptist Convention. And so I think it's just so great that we can come together and unify and be together and still do the mission, even when we disagree on some of these minor issues. And it's really neat. And again, to be the biggest Protestant denomination out there and be as conservative as we are and sticking to complementarianism as we do, and confronting the Pentecostal movement as we do, it is very surprising that we are still one of the largest denominations in the entire world. So that's exciting for me, and so it was a really great time. I think is kind of how I would summarize it, and just a reminder that God is on the move and there's still work to do. So we got to get back to it.
So thank you for kind of catching us up on what exactly the Southern Baptist Convention is. And me and him both are just proud to be Southern Baptists, be working within the Southern Baptist churches and see how the Lord is moving. And so whether you're Southern Baptist or you're not, we're happy that you've listened. You were happy that you tuned in, and we pray that you would continue to do the work of the Lord. Or if you're not saved, we pray that you would just ask us, message us, help us to figure out what this gospel is, who Jesus is, and we want to point you and get you going in the right direction. And so we thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you next time. God bless.
God bless. Oh, I got to stop it.
Thank you so much for watching the Grace Bond Ministries podcast or listening to the podcast. I know there's various ways that you could be listening to this right now or watching this right now, but I just want to say thank you so much. And if you would, wherever you're listening, if you're listening on YouTube, subscribe to the YouTube channel. On podcast, please leave a 5-star review and write a little thing in there. If you're on Facebook, leave a comment. Let me know how this impacted you, or even any other questions or comments or concerns you may have. And also, if you have an idea or you have something you'd really want to talk more deeply about, you can always email me at gracebondministries@gmail.com. But thank you so much. Remember, for it is by grace you are saved through faith, and not of yourselves, for it is the gift of God. Thank you for listening to Grace Bond Ministries.